Hey everybody, I hope you had a great spring break and you enjoyed your time off. This week we're kicking it off with Chapter 8, which is your nutrition basics, and so hopefully we're following up your physical activity with some nutritional facts, and most of the time the nutrition is what a lot of people have questions about. So just to kind of give you some guidelines and walkthroughs in terms of important facts to know. So it's important to know macronutrients versus micronutrients. So macronutrients is your big three, which is your carb, protein, and fat. We get those from animal cells and soy cells, and those are what we get our calories from. Your micronutrients are going to be your vitamins, minerals, and water. We don't get those from animal sources. Usually those come from outside, like your vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, things of that nature that we get those from. So those are your macro and micronutrients. You should know the different components to the macro and micronutrients. And then I want you to be able to identify different things that are in each category. So carbohydrate, a simple carbohydrate versus a complex carbohydrate, soluble fiber versus insoluble fiber, complete protein versus incomplete protein, so things of that nature. So remember, a soluble fiber is going to hold you over for longer, so that would be something like oats. Insoluble fiber is something that we digest pretty quickly, so it goes through us, which would be regular potatoes, like your baked potato. And then complete versus incomplete, so your complete protein would be something that comes from an animal source, and then incomplete protein is something missing an amino acid. So a complete protein would be, chicken, eggs, and then incomplete protein would be something like nuts. Your different types of fat, so your saturated fat, unsaturated fat, and trans fat. So knowing which ones are good fat versus bad fat. Trans fat is definitely the one we don't want. Saturated fat is okay for you, unsaturated fat not so much. And then trans fat is definitely the one we want to stay away from. So those are your main components of nutritional facts. Fiber is extremely good for heart and blood pressure, so the more fiber you get, the better if you're going to be. Complete proteins are good for you, and then making sure that you're getting the right kind of carbohydrates. So like I say in your PowerPoint, do not be afraid of carbohydrates. You want the good kind of carbohydrates, so all whole grains. You want all whole grains, so whole grain bread, whole grain pasta, things of that nature. So remembering to make good choices. Honey wheat is not whole grain. Like I say in PowerPoint, you want to flip the bread over to the side, not the back of the bread, but the side, and it will have a yellow indicator on it that says whole grains, and that's indicated that it is whole grains. They've verified that, and so that's healthier for you to eat. Your pasta, Barilla, B-A-R-I-L-L-A, is the best option for you to choose when doing whole wheat pasta. They have the best options. Or you can do zoodles, which is your zucchini noodles. You spiralize a zucchini or a squash. Or you can do spaghetti squash. You can bake it. Those are great options when talking about spaghetti. You can do ground beef or chicken and do those options instead of the regular pasta. And then rice, you always want to go with brown rice versus white rice. Jasmine rice is okay for carbohydrates, but you really want to stick with the brown rice. And we'll talk about meal prep in another chapter, chapter 9, I do believe it is. If you have meal prep questions, please let me know. Now, in terms of your midterm, so I have a few things I want to go over with you because there seems to be some struggles with one particular area. So target heart rate zone seemed to be the one area that everyone really struggled with. So I want to talk about that. So the question, there were two questions. One was asking about how to target max heart rate, which is 220 minus your age. Then the other question was asking you if the target heart rate zone was true or false. A lot of you chose true, but the question was asking, or it was saying, this is target heart rate zone, and I made sure to bold and underline zone so you wouldn't get confused. And when you think about a zone in terms of numbers is 2 numbers or more than 2 numbers. So it's typically an area in which you're fulfilling. So think about it this way of like handicap zone. You typically have multiple spaces for handicap parking places or handicap participants to sit, things of that nature. So there's more than one. Zone indicates more than one. So when thinking about a target heart rate zone, I'm looking for an upper end and a lower end. And that question only gave you one number, which is not a zone. That's just a number. That's just kind of like a goal for you to get around is that number. But when talking about target heart rate zone, you have an upper end and a lower end that you want to stay in. Because realistically, like I said in my other video in regarding to this, if you just give me one number, how likely is it that you're going to hold that heart rate for a prolonged period of time? So you can't stay at that one heart rate. So the whole point of the zone is for you to be able to stay within those 2 numbers and go up and down and be able to burn fat or burn calories. So your target heart rate zone is going to be 220 minus your age, right? 220 minus age. Okay, so that's your max heart rate. Okay, so it looks like this, right? Then you have your resting heart rate. And you're going to subtract that from your max heart rate, which is your heart rate reserve, which we really didn't discuss. You can do either way. And then you're going to use the chart that I provided in that PowerPoint, and it tells you what your physical activity level is. It is not up for you to necessarily decide. You can, but everyone's is different based upon their physical activity level. So if you don't exercise at all, your activity level is going to be completely different from someone who exercises every single day, which is where your target heart rate zone comes in. So someone who doesn't work out at all would have a percentage of like 0.56 to 0.67 or something like that. I don't have the chart right in front of me and I don't have it memorized, so I can't tell you for sure. But it's going to be in that lower area. So then you times your number by 0.56 and then 0.67. And that's your zone. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If it's still not making sense, please go back and review the PowerPoints. Or email me and I will do my best to kind of lay it out for you. We can talk through it on the phone. We can talk through it multiple different ways. But the short answer question on your midterm was asking for you to walk through those steps with me. So step 1, max heart rate minus age. Then give me a number. Step 2, resting heart rate. Here's my resting heart rate. Step 3, max heart rate minus resting heart reserve. Step 4, that heart rate times 0.56. Step 5, that heart rate times 0.67. Step 6, did I just say step 6? I don't even know what step we're on. Step 7 is your heart rate zone. And that's kind of what I was looking for you to break it down for me, so that way I can see that you understood how to get to your target heart rate zone. If you just gave me the formulas, then you didn't get any credit. If you were way off base and you only gave me one number, you didn't get credit. So really that question was more of an all or nothing type of question. You either got it or you didn't. The only other issue with the midterm, which we have addressed and I've addressed, is the VO2 max, which I did explicitly say in the last video for the review, but I realized that the 2 answers that were actually correct were basically the same answer, and those were pretty much what everybody was saying continuously. So if you answered one or the other, I give you credit. As long as you understand how VO2 max is correlated and calculated and what it means, then we're fine. We're perfect. I think those were the only issues with questions. If you do have questions about the midterm, please let me know. the answers should have popped up for you after you completed your midterm. You should be able to go back and review. I went through every single midterm and I regraded things if I thought that if you spelled something wrong. So visceral fat and subcutaneous fat got spelled wrong a lot, so I went back and corrected that. So you should have gotten points for that. And outside of that, everyone seemed to do really well. Props to you guys for getting the extra credit points or the extra credit questions correct, because that's something we'll talk about in a couple of weeks with chronic disease and communicable disease. So way to look ahead on that one and kind of have an edge there. Again, if you have questions, please reach out, and I hope you have a great week back from spring.